Right. So we are live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. I am Shataya Williams, the outreach coordinator here with Moms in Motion, and welcome to another episode of Voices in Motion, where we highlight valuable voices, resources, and partners within our community. So today we are excited to highlight the incredible community organization Sportable, adaptive sports and recreation, and they are a group that is changing the game when it comes to inclusive athletic opportunities. And joining us today is David Robbins. And a little bit about David. David was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, and he has dedicated his life to breaking down barriers and building bridges, not just in RVA, but across the Commonwealth and beyond. And David currently serves as the outreach coordinator for Sportable, where he connects individuals of all abilities to adaptive sports opportunities. His background also includes powerful community work with Virginia Humanities and VCU's Office on Multicultural Student Affairs. And before all of that, over the decade, and he worked in the food industry. David is a first generation college graduate, from VCU with a degree in political science and a focus on human and civil rights. So we are thrilled to have you with us today and joining us and sharing more about Sportable and how they are making sports accessible, inclusive, and empowering individuals. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, of course, Shataya. It's my pleasure to join and to share more information about Sportable. So thank you for having me. And as Shataya said, my name is David and I represent Sportable. And I'm going to share more information about us right now. So, what is Sportable? Sportable is a nonprofit organization founded in Richmond, located in Richmond, Virginia. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We were founded in 2005. And our mission is to create opportunities and transform the lives of people with physical disabilities and visual impairments through sport and recreation. And now, recently, we've also added some wellness activities. And so we're not about being the best sports teams across the state, or even, or being the best adaptive sports teams in the country. Our goal is really to give people the opportunities to try sports out, and for it to give them the opportunity to change their life through sport and to live more fulfilled lives in that way. And so, Sportable, we provide more than 20 adaptive sports, recreation, and wellness opportunities currently for nearly 500 athletes annually. That is our weekly programming. That doesn't include the special events, community events, camps, and clinics, and things like that, which I'll speak about a little bit as well. But we start at ages 5, and we go and we have participants as old as in their 70s and 80s. We say 5 to 105. We don't put a limit on the top age range. We want for people to be able to participate as long as they want to, and things like that. And our program, again, is specifically for people with physical disabilities and visual impairments, but a variety of those different diagnoses and things like that. On this slide, you see the list of all of our different ongoing programs. And this doesn't even include all of our wellness activities that we have going on, and different pop-ups and clinics and things like that we host as well. So from that list, you can see that we provide team sports. We think that team sports is a very good opportunity to promote camaraderie and collaboration, especially for people with physical disabilities. We find that people with physical disabilities, a lot of the times when people are bringing or when people with disabilities are coming together, it's for support groups and things like that. And this is an opportunity for people to come and collaborate together in something that is outside of their diagnoses, outside of that hospital setting and things like that. They're able to come together and talk with people, and it's not about the disability, it's about life, it's about sports. And yeah, and it's helpful because people are able to, in those conversations, share resources, because obviously disability is a big part of their lives. But again, it's not about that. It's about coming together and playing a sport and being active. And pictured, you'll see some of our different team sports that we have available. Rugby in the bottom right hand corner, as well as lacrosse actually in the top left. We're this year we're sending our first team to nationals, which is pretty exciting because we it's been kind of a numbers game. You need at least 10 to 12 players to be able to go to nationals, and so our lacrosse program has grown to the point where we're actually able to send some people to nationals this year. So that's awesome. But we also do offer individual sports like rock climbing, archery, pickleball, road racing, and tennis. And while these are individual sports and the activity itself is individual in nature, there is still that increased camaraderie, because the way our programs work is people are coming at it to a certain place at a certain time to have practices and different things like this for the programs. And so recently, actually talking with one of our tennis athletes, they love tennis so much because it is an individual sport for the most part, right? You are playing, it's all according to your skill and your ability and everything like that. However, you're still, like, during practice, coming together as a team for practices and drills and camps and clinics and things like that. You can travel as a team, and there are still the aspects of coming together as a community, even though the sport is individual. And we all know the benefits from physical activity, and we see that people with physical disabilities receive those same benefits, right? Increased cardiovascular fitness, better balance and mobility, less pain and fatigue, and lower rates of comorbid conditions. We also see psychosocial changes as far as less stress and depression, more executive functioning, a higher quality of life, and all of these things. And we know that, again, these are the benefits that everybody gets from participating in sports. However, we do recognize the problem in that more than half of adults with physical disabilities get no aerobic physical activity. Children with disabilities are far less active than their non-disabled peers, and adults with disabilities are 2 times as likely to be physically inactive as their non-disabled peers. And so even though people with disabilities receive all the same benefits as people without disabilities do from participating in sport and activity, why are people with disabilities, participating less in activity, right? It's not because people with disabilities are more lazy or they just don't want to be active. It's because people with disabilities are underserved in many areas of life, and access to physical connection and physical activity and social connection through sport and recreation is no exception at all. And these are some of the barriers that we find that people with physical disabilities face when they're trying to join and participate in physical activity. Diminished drive and motivation, right? This could be as a aspect of their diagnoses potentially, or at the bottom where it says attitudinal biases. This could stem from internal biases that people have about their ability to even do sports now. Lack of time, interest, or energy. Again, we understand that people with disabilities, they face things can take a lot longer for people with disabilities, right? Getting ready in the morning, going out to do something, leaving from something, and we understand that depending on a diagnosis, somebody may or may not have, or there are energy limitations, right? A person only has a certain amount of spoons in their day. So what are they using those spoons for? Lack of knowledge. That's the purpose of me being on here and all the other outreach that I'm doing, is increasing knowledge about adaptive sports programs. I think that while there is a lack of existence of these programs, right? Sportable is one of the few adaptive sports organizations in the state of Virginia, and it's, as far as I know, I believe one of the only ones that is providing as much as we are, as often as we are. And that's and I think when you think about how widely sports are available for people without disabilities, it's really a shame. And so that's part of what we're doing to try to spread the knowledge and spread the access to programs. And then, of course, physical limitations like pain, fatigue can be a barrier to participation, as well as limited mobility can be a barrier to participation in some adaptive sports. But we find that no matter what, there's always a way to adapt a sport to be able to adapt. There are activities that anybody with any disability is able to do. Um, there are lack of support or opportunities. We kind of already spoke on that. The false belief that participation is unsafe or too risky, and I have a slide about that coming up. But I'll just start by saying that the benefits far outweigh the risks in participating in adaptive sports. Inaccessible environments, so a lot of sports facilities and things like that are not thinking about accessibility when they are designing or designing these spaces. And if they are, they're really going for ADA compliance. And we know that compliance with the ADA is the floor of accessibility, not the ceiling. And so that can be an issue. Or even if if a place says that they are quote unquote an accessible facility, depending on a person's disability, it could be accessible for somebody with maybe an amputation who has a prosthetic, but it might not be accessible for somebody who uses a power wheelchair that is super wide, right? So though all the just because a place says that is accessible does not mean that is necessarily accessible for everybody. And then cost of programming equipment. The equipment for adaptive sports is not covered by insurance. It's not deemed medically necessary when we know that it's beneficial as preventative medicine to help keep people healthy for longer. But sports chairs and different equipment can be upwards of, in the thousands of dollars, depending on the type of equipment that you're looking at. And there are grants and different things to help bring that cost, but it's still a very, very, very high barrier. And then, of course, like I said, attitudinal biases internally, but also externally, what people think people with disabilities can and can't do, and things like that. And while all of these are very real barriers that people face, we at Sportable and other adaptive sports orgs are trying to reduce these barriers as much as possible. And so while we are facing those particular barriers, we do have solutions in order to help promote physical activity. Like I said previously, the benefits for participating in adaptive sports far outweigh the risk. These are some points from the World Health Organization. The quote highlighted at the top where it says, there are no major risks to people living with disability engaging in physical activity. People living with disability may need to consult a health professional or other physical activity and disability specialist to help determine the type and amount of activity appropriate for them. However, we at Sportable, we do not require a doctor's note for somebody to come and participate in our programs, just like your local YMCA isn't asking for a doctor's note if you're joining that gym. As I said previously, the benefits of participating in activities for people with disabilities far outweigh the risks. Just like me, I could go out in the basketball court and sprain and break my ankle, right, on a bad jump or something like that. People with disabilities do face those same risks when they're participating in physical activity. However, that does not mean that they should not also access the benefits, right? I think a lot of this comes from people seeing people with physical disabilities as more fragile than people without disabilities. And so they might be scared for somebody with a disability to get hurt when, it's honestly a part of living a dignified life. Living a dignified life is having that opportunity for a risk. Now, of course, depending on the diagnoses, a broken bone could be more serious for somebody else than somebody else, right? And so, again, with consultation with doctors, and it does very much depend on the situation. But for the most part, we are of the camp believing that that the benefits far outweigh the risks of participating in adaptive sports. And we see this attitude from parents. We see this attitude from doctors even. So it's not it's not an unheard of thing for people to think this way. And so we're trying to change the mindset. And then now I just have a short video about getting active. I think. All right, we're just gonna skip that video because it didn't want to play. But the point is to start small and keep going. The video was about an initiative around just getting people up and getting people moving, right? Starting small and keep going. The benefits that people are receiving from sport, it starts at whatever, like it's for adults specifically. It's the CDC recommends that people get 150 minutes of exercise per week, right? That could be 30 minutes over 5 days, 50 minutes over 3 days, however you want to break it up. But any amount of physical activity, any amount of motion, any amount of getting up if you're able and moving, moving your arms, moving your legs, moving whatever you're able to do, whatever motion that you're able to do, that is beneficial for your health, and it's better than not doing anything. And so with an emphasis on getting outside, especially because that vitamin D, that sunlight and everything, and getting active, walking, rolling, or strolling can be a great health promoting activity for anyone and all abilities level. This picture is actually from our we call it our walking program. We've also thought about calling it roll and stroll, right? Because it's about getting out with however you move, and getting out and moving, right? And especially when you're able to find community with others, that's a big thing that we talk about at Sportable. We find that community is one of our superpowers, and we think that it helps with accountability, and it also just it's always good to have that community around you whenever you're trying anything new, or dedicating yourself to something consistent. These are some examples of assistive technology for sport and recreation. On the most left-hand side, that's a picture of one of our basketball athletes, Matt Barber, and he is in a sports wheelchair, specifically a basketball chair. And this chair, you can see it's a little bit different from your everyday chair, where it has the wheels have a tilt to them. That helps with, as far as physics go, it helps with being more fast, agile, all those different kinds of things. There are no brakes on a sports wheelchair. You use the push rims. You grab your hands on the push rims and sit up straight to brake in a sports chair. There's also a you can see the frame at the bottom kind of goes around towards the wheels. That's because basketball itself is not a contact sport, but there is some bumping of chairs, and so that goes to protect the frame, the wheels, and the athlete. Let me think. And then there are also with sport wheelchairs, they can have a certain angle to them, like where the seat is at, and it's called dump. A certain amount of dump in a chair, and depending on how much strength somebody has in their core, that can help them sit up, help to keep them seated up straight. There are also latches on the sports chair, which help to tie you into it, so that way it is more more like an extension of your body, and you're able to actually move it with your hips even, and you don't even have to push it at a certain level. Some other assistive technology on the page, towards the middle, one of the smaller pictures is of an indoor erging machine or indoor rowing machine. We use this in the winter months when it's cold outside. Right next, or I'm sorry, there isn't a picture of rowing on this slide. But in the summer months, we're actually out on because we're in Richmond. There's the James River right near us. We're on the river with our rowing program, but in the wintertime, we bring it indoors, and we have different things that can make that accessible, as far as stationary seats, upright seats that have a back to them, as well as buoys on the side of the boat to help with balance, to prevent it from flipping. There are a lot of different adaptations to help if you're only able to do one. There are also double kayaks, if so that way you can have somebody assist you as well. Many different adaptations for that. Below those pictures, there is a picture, and there are a few, actually, three in the top the top right, and then in the bottom middle, there are some pictures of different cycles that are available. There are recumbent cycles, which are the ones with the two wheels, that those help with balance. Um, and there's also a hand cycle at the top, which is one of the smaller ones. And the two at the top are actually hand cycles, and the one on the left is more of a sit-up hand cycle for like beginners. But either and then the one to the right on the very far in the very far top right is more is like a hand cycle that's for racing, for competitive racing. You can see it's low to the ground. He's very aerodynamic, but again, it's about a synchronous pushing of a hand crank instead of using your legs to get that going. But for people who might not have use of their legs, that's a way for them to get out in cycling. And then in the very bottom left, there is a picture of power soccer, which pictured our Strike Force chairs, which are power wheelchairs that are built specifically for power soccer. And they have different speed settings and things like that. But Power Soccer is actually one of the first programs that Sportable started with, because you're able to attach plastic or even cardboard guards on the front of people's everyday power chairs, and they can play doing that as well. So a lot of different options for assistive technology in sport and recreation. Oops. And then there are some smaller AT solutions or assistive technology solutions. As far as on the far left with arch, well, a lot of these are with, or there's a couple of archery pictures. But on the far left, there we worked with VCU engineering students to make mouth triggers, so that way somebody can pull back the arrow with their mouth, and then I think they bite it down or something like that in a certain way in order to release the arrow if they only have use of one arm. There's also people who shoot seated from their wheelchairs, but also in the middle you can see there are some the black like glove looking things on their hand and around their wrist. These are grip assists that help hold on to the arrow as well. So lots of different ways for assisting grip. This picture down at the bottom is one of the oar adaptations that I was talking about. If you have weakness in your hand, you're not able to necessarily grip oars like that, rather than like tying somebody's hand to an oar, which would be unsafe. But you can have this easy slide in, slide out motion. And then also in the very bottom right of the picture of rock climbing, this is a harness specifically for people who use wheelchairs. It's called a seated harness. And we find, especially with rock climbing, that a lot of things that people are already doing, like a lot of things that people already use in rock climbing, can be used to help make adaptations. Whether it's different pulley systems, that means somebody doesn't have to carry as much as their weight, and different things like that. So there are a lot of different solutions when it comes to rock climbing. And then in the top right hand, you see one of our athletes using battle ropes, and you can kind of see the little green thing on his hand. That's an easy hold, and that's another smaller assistive technology solution that's helpful for gripping onto things as well. And so if you're thinking about trying to get somebody, if you have a disability or if you know somebody with a disability and you're trying to develop some kind of exercise program, here are some considerations that you can think about. So thinking about standing versus seated exercises, right? There are a lot of options, and I'm going to provide some resources that has some options for seated exercise, because I don't think people don't always think about seated exercise, right, as a thing. But it's like when you go to the gym, like, and you can do like seated bicep curls, right? Like that's a seated exercise that somebody with a disability can do. And so just thinking about how you can maybe edit exercises so it can be seated versus standing, or if somebody has the ability to stand some, but maybe not for long periods of time, how you can interwork standing versus seated exercises in the workout to make it to one, potentially increase that standing ability, or also just to make considerations for that. Again, there are a lot of different kinds of gripping aids depending on what specifically you're looking to assist with. There are also weights that are specially designed with great grip aids already on them, that you can find online, to help if gripping is a problem. And then always considering paralysis, what the levels are, how much motion somebody might have, what exercises are doable and aren't doable for somebody, and trusting that person. If you're designing this for somebody else, like trusting, like people with disabilities know their bodies best, and so trusting them to how far they might want to push it and things like that. Sportable is very much challenged by choice, so it's like, we want people to push themselves, but only as much as they're comfortable, but also like we don't want to limit somebody if they want to potentially push themselves a little bit more as well. Positioning can always be a big thing when it comes to exercising. Again, if somebody has certain weaknesses in their core, things like that, how they can be seated can be different, and you can make those different kinds of considerations. Protecting joints, especially if somebody is using a wheelchair for their daily form of mobility, or hand crutches or anything else, you want to think about the joints and the muscles that are being used a lot already just in their daily life, right? Because if you're pushing a wheelchair, that's a lot of shoulder pushing, right? A lot of shoulder pushing. And so that's one of the reasons why we developed the rowing program, because that's developing the opposite muscle and the opposite motion and the opposite, joint. And so that's just something to consider of if somebody's using hand crutches, how can you involve their legs more so they're getting, if they are able to, well, I guess if you're using hand crutches, you have some use of your legs. But things like that. And then, of course, managing fatigue and energy conservation. I spoke a little bit earlier about, making sure that people have access to all the spoons they need for, their daily life. And so, especially when considering conditions like MS, and things like that, just making sure that, just considering how much fatigue somebody is able to take in a certain day or time and things like that. Again, as I was speaking about seated fitness, there are a lot of different options. You can use weights, resistant bands, battle ropes, indoor jump ropes. The very first slide where the thing was like spinning in the person's hand, that's what that was. That's an indoor, or it says an indoor jump rope. It's I guess you can use any kind of jump rope indoors, but it's a jump rope specifically designed for people with physical disabilities. It has a weight. It has your normal jump rope handle, and then there's a string and then a weighted ball at the end, and you can just spin it. And so you're getting kind of the same motion from jump roping without actually having to do the jumping. And there's lots of other equipment. Dance-based classes. We recently did a wheelchair ballroom dance program, which was really popular. And so that's a way to get people up and moving. Seated yoga. Of course, I think that's fairly known, but that's another option. Is there are ways that you don't always have to get down and lay all the way on the ground for yoga. You're able to do that from seated positions as well. And then again, as I spoke about earlier, just general exercises from a seated position, thinking about how we can incorporate those more into workouts to make them more accessible. And at the bottom, there are a couple icons. NICPAD, or National Center for Health and Physical. I can never remember what it stands for, but it's out of the University of Birmingham in Alabama, and it's all about physical activity and physical disability. National Center for Health, Physical Activity, and Disability. That's what it stands for. I always want to put the physical and the disability together. That's what it is. But then there's also Chair One Fitness, and they have a lot of different resources for seated yoga as well, or for seated fitness in general as well. And then talking about NICPAD, they have a mentor program, which mentor stands for Mindfulness, Exercise, and Nutrition to Optimize Resilience. This is a completely virtual program. It's an 8-week virtual wellness program where you get 40 plus hours of live Zoom classes around mindfulness, nutrition, exercise, and other wellness topics. All participants receive a free box of wellness materials. Again, the program is free, and they have monthly programs going on through their website. Sportable has done mentor sessions and mentor groups previously. Currently, we are planning for one in the future. Not no specific dates on that, but if you live in the state of Virginia, you can join a Sportable group But also they are mentor is always starting different groups. If you go to its website, which is on the slide deck, or you can just search up NICPAD and mentor and you can get signed up there. But and it's a really great program. We've heard a lot of wonderful things about it. Just able to increase mindfulness just around when it comes to pain management, and other mental health conditions and things like that. We've seen a lot of improvement in our athlete population when it comes to those things. Again, NICPAD Connect, they have Mentor as part of their Connect program, and they have a lot of different things under that, but it's a national hub promoting health and well-being for people with disabilities. In the middle is Move United. They use sports to push what's possible. So everyone, regardless of ability, has equal access to sport and recreation in their community. If you go to Move United's website, they have a locator tab where you can click on that, put in your city and state or your zip code, and find whatever adaptive programs are closest to you, so that way you can get involved. And then there's Kelly Brush Foundation and their active project. They are striving to become the largest community of adaptive organizations and athletes. They have grants and different funding opportunities available. They have newsletters that go out to keep people informed about resources and helping people with disabilities to get and stay active. And then, yeah, other national resources, Move United, Special Olympics and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, specifically for people with physical disabilities. If you're interested in getting in that more high level, competitive sport, that's a good um, avenue to look into, as well as the U.S. Association of Blind Athletes, if for people with visual impairments, and then Challenge Athlete Foundation is also um, another organization that provides grants and funding to help people get adaptive sports equipment and things like that. So there are opportunities to help with the funding of those things to reduce that barrier for people who want to get involved. And then my last point is find community, right? I think that recently the Surgeon General has, I believe it was in the last year or so, the Surgeon General released a report saying that the United States is facing an epidemic of loneliness. People are, or that in when you're experiencing prolonged bouts of loneliness and isolation, it can be worse for your health than smoking an entire pack of cigarettes in a day. And so, my urge is, whether it's through sports, whether it's through art, whether it's through spirituality, whatever way that you want to find community, find people who can help you along in your journey, people who have similar lived experiences to you, so that way you can live an even more fulfilled and even more dignified life. Because that's really our end goal for people with disabilities, is that they're able to live life like everybody else is, because they're people like everybody else. So. Um, but yeah, if there are any, if you ever have any questions, want to get in contact, our website, sportable.org, my email, david@sportable.org. Um, Thank you, Shatea, for having me again today. And I'd love to stick around if there are any questions or anything like that. But yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was great. I definitely enjoy learning about all the sports that you guys offer. So, with your plethora of sports that you guys offer, what sports tend to be the most popular or have the highest turnout?
Yeah, of course. I'll actually go back to my slide that has our sport,
Hmm.
so I can. Oh, now it wants to pop up. That's cool. Um, so, our by far our most popular sports are archery, um, rock climbing,
Hmm.
and then I want to say cycling. Those are our top three.
Okay.
archery, cycling, and excuse me, and rock climbing, which is interesting because when people think of adaptive sports, a lot of times they think about wheelchair basketball, right? Um,
Yeah.
or because I think it's a very visual representation of adaptive
Hmm.
sport, right? Like if you like with rock climbing, if somebody has a prosthetic, you might not even necessarily notice that that person has a disability. With cycling, I don't think that it's just not as well known, right? But no, our athletes, they love to get out, especially like the outdoor stuff, archery and cycling. Yeah, they love that stuff. Rock climbing is indoors, but it's definitely yeah, one of our top programs.
Awesome. And then so from start to finish, so if there's a competition, what does a typical practice or event look like for an athlete?
Yeah, of course. And so I can also talk about kind of how our programs work. So the way
Hmm.
that our programs are set up is that basically you have to sign up for a membership to
Hmm.
our program. We operate on a membership model because we want to make sure that people who are a good fit for our program are signing up, right? Like we don't
Hmm.
want, because we serve people with disabilities, but primarily people with physical disabilities. We don't want people like for example, somebody who might be on the autism spectrum who might benefit from it better from going to one of our partner programs. We wouldn't want them to sign up, and so we have people sign up for a membership. And then once you're a member, you have access to all the programming that we have available. There is even some programming available for people who aren't members. A lot of the virtual wellness programming and things like that. But and so yeah, once you're a member, you will sign up for for example, let's take cycling.
Hmm.
We will post or we will schedule an 8-week cycling session, and then you'll
Hmm.
sign up for that 8-week cycling session. And it'll happen at the same place at the same time every week. And so you just have to get yourself there. And then we bring all of the equipment and everything like that for people to be able to use. At a specific program, again, you'll arrive at the program, meet up in the location that in the gym or wherever the program is meeting at. There will be like a little like the coaches will gather everybody, and it'll just run like whatever any other practice. With cycling,
Hmm.
as people arrive, it's more of an individual thing. So as people are arriving, people are getting into their cycles, doing their their ABC checks, making sure that the brakes are good and everything like that. And then they're going
Hmm.
off on the trail with their partner. But again, for like the team sports like basketball, power
Hmm.
soccer, wheelchair tennis, these are gonna run like your average sports practice where you're coming, gathering together, run some drills, do some scrimmaging, depending on the numbers and what it looks like. But yeah, um, yeah.
So, thank you. And I know you briefly mentioned coaches. So, how are your coaches and volunteers trained to support your athletes?
Yeah, of course. So, for the most part, and I believe at this point, all of our coaches, most if not all of our coaches, are actually people with physical disabilities who have also done
Hmm.
these sports before. And so we
Gotcha.
understand that lived experience is very critical,
Yeah.
especially for when we're talking about youth. Um,
Hmm.
like for example, one of our youth or Jack is older now. He's actually about to graduate college. But when he was younger, he saw his power soccer coach get like rolling into her van in her chair and then like about to drive off. And Jack was like, "Oh, Coach Jesse, you can drive?" And then uh, uh, Coach Jesse was able to explain to Jack like all the different things that are possible that he might not have thought were possible before.
Right.
So, but with our volunteers, we do have volunteer trainings before program starts, so that way people can learn about just learn about the how the sport works. But we also have developed disability etiquette trainings and different things like
Hmm.
that, so that way people are prepared to work with people with disabilities and to treat them like anybody else. Um,
Right.
and things like that. But I will also say that we do have like a good amount of PTs OTs and nurses and things like that who volunteer for some of our programs. That, like for example, our aquatics program, um, uh, that can be for people who might need more support in the water. And so for those kinds of programs, we tend to source like physical therapists, occupational therapists, recreational therapists, um,
Hmm.
things like that. People who have experience with that, with providing people with disability support. Um, but we do provide like training beforehand as well, before programs start.
Awesome. And with that training that you provide, are parents and siblings allowed to get involved as well?
For as parents of the volunteers.
Well, parents of the volunteers or parents of the athletes. So I know you said that you guys serve individuals from 5 to 105. So if, say, for instance, a 5-year-old is joining your program and it's their first time, participating, is their parent allowed to volunteer and just be a helping hand?
Yeah, of course. No, we love for
Awesome.
parents to volunteer. And especially for like our youth basketball team, I'm pretty sure they have like
Hmm.
parent meetings. So yeah, so no, they're we're very we love for parents and siblings to be involved as much as possible. And so yes, like parents and siblings can come to practice. And things
Hmm.
like, as long as they're not, as long as siblings aren't too much of a distraction, of course, like we
Of
want to make
course.
sure that the program is happening. But no, yes, and all and actually specifically for volunteers
Hmm.
between the ages of 14 and 16 actually have to have a parent or guardian with them. But yeah, for participants, yes, we love for parents to be involved.
I think that's great because, especially for athletes who are so young, who might be a little nervous or
Yeah,
shy, that would definitely help them open up and get out of their shell a little bit.
no, definitely, definitely.
So, my last question is, what do you wish more families or professionals understood about the value of adaptive sports or your program in general?
I think the biggest thing for me is one, the community aspect of it, right? I think that a lot of times people aren't always necessarily aware of the benefits that participating in sports, like the social benefits of participating
Hmm.
in sports, right? And like if we think about our own experiences previously in sports, like we realize that, some of our best friends come from sports. Like those are some of
Right.
and because I think it comes out of like the aspect of being active together. It builds a certain level of camaraderie, right? And so I would like to emphasize the value of that in life, right? Like I said, the Surgeon
Hmm.
General has said that we are facing an epidemic of loneliness. So, and the disability community has been experiencing that for a long time, right? And so I
Right.
think post COVID, every or after after yeah post COVID, like we're all getting a bit of it. We've all gotten a bit of a taste of that. And so the yeah big thing on community, and then also the aspect of it being preventative medicine, of like the earlier people are able to get involved, the more access that they'll have later on. And especially for parents, like colleges, there are colleges like Clemson, with there's Whitewater in Wisconsin that are giving away scholarships to kids
Hmm.
for adaptive sports, for basketball, for tennis, for track and field. And so it's also an opportunity for life after, once, like if like I know parents probably are thinking a lot about like what happens once my kid turns 18. There that is a route, is a potential route for them as well.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunity in adaptive sports, I think, that people don't always think about.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's, like you said, very important to emphasize, um, because especially post-COVID, a lot of people have gotten so used to just being in the house and doing their own thing. So this is also an opportunity for individuals to get out and, like you said, have that community and meet new people and just to experience life in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
So I definitely appreciate. you joining us today. And thank you so much again for joining us today and sharing not only the amazing work that Sportable is doing, but also your personal commitment to equity and inclusion and just the joy of what you guys offer in sports in general. So, to our viewers, if you or someone that you know or love is looking for a way to get moving or build community, build confidence, or experience the power of Sportable, we dropped their website in the chat and you can find them at sportable.org. Or, like David said, you can email him, and his email address is on the screen. You can share this video with your friends and family as well. And I do have one more question. Do you guys have any upcoming events that our community members can join?
Um, we are planning for our Virginia Adaptive Sports Festival. It will be
Okay.
at the end of January. Some
Okay.
more info to come out on that. But that is our next. We just had our like big tennis tournament, and wheelchair
Mhm.
basketball nationals. But our next thing coming up will probably be that Virginia Adaptive Sports Festival at the beginning of the year, which will be an opportunity for all kinds of people from all over the state to come try adaptive sports, get access to resources and stuff like that. So it's always a really good time.
Awesome. That actually sounds amazing. I can't wait for that event and to hopefully be there and share our community for people who just so happen to miss it. So, as always, thank you all for tuning in to Voices in Motion. And we hope that you join us again on our next live. Thank you.
Thank you.